Welcome back to Rock the World with Kay and Michelle. It's been almost 2 months since our last episode. Wow.
Yes, it has. Um, I had to go to the Czech Republic. I was doing my training on the neuromuscular clinic. I also see people. I had saw kiddos and adults from uh, Latvia, Slovakia, Poland, Czech Republic, to name a few. So I go to places and people come in. Like in 2 weeks, I'm in Orlando, Florida, to do my East Coast. Orlando's great because people can fly in from the Americas or from Europe. They can actually have a vacation if they want because it's right there, with Disney and everything. So,
Yeah.
so I have a couple of trips a year, starting to plan out next year. And yeah, so that's why we just haven't met up. I've just been busy doing the neuromuscular clinic, and I finished the reflex book, which this is what we're discussing today, our reflexes.
School and horseback riding have started up again for the fall season. I recently cut almost 6 inches off my hair, even though I had just done the same last October. My wheelchair got some maintenance repairs, but the technician didn't tighten a few screws properly, so my family had to take care of it afterward.
Yeah,
I've
that's
also
usually
recorded 4 new podcast episodes and have my second horse show coming up this Sunday.
that's wonderful. Yeah.
Before we dive in, just a quick reminder, the experiences we discuss on this show are for educational purposes only. Please don't substitute them for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And if you notice any pauses during this episode, we ask you to keep listening. Sometimes, someone's processing their thoughts, or it's just part of the natural flow of conversation. We're diving into something that's right at the core of your new work, reflexes. Michelle just released her newest book, Neuromuscular Child Movement Assessment, Reflexes Edition. It's all about rethinking how we understand reflexes, not as problems to fix, but as functional movement patterns.
Right. Well, one of the things that I really feel passionate about is I want to have a complete assessment tool for all parents to and professionals to know where a child is in their development at any stage. Right. And so we're breaking this down, and reflex is one of the categories. So is vision and midline development. So not only am I introducing primitive reflexes, but I'm also introducing my reflex basis of gravitational reflexes. And then also what I have is a deviation scale. So there's a deviation 1 to a deviation 4, 1 being optimal and 4 being where the signs and symptoms are quite severe. But by breaking them down, it allows people to start looking at where their child is with their category. Because a lot of people think that if there's no birth trauma, everything's fine. And there could be genetics, there could be trauma in the utero, and or just development is just not kicking in for whatever reason. They don't know yet. But I am all about being proactive. That's the whole point of our podcast, Rock the World. It's just about being proactive and knowing what you need to do to get things done.
And reality, even if it is not something you can be proactive about.
Um, everything I feel you could be proactive about, even if you feel that your child or the situation you're in is in severe state consequences or state or trauma. Knowing where you're at and what needs to be done, what doctors that you need, what therapists you need, what movements you need to be working on, where your child's care is all about being proactive versus that wait and see or surprise.
I mean, our situations couldn't be proactive in a sense.
What do you mean our situations? Our situations, you mean you and I? Sorry, I'm not. Oh, going back that there wasn't, we couldn't be proactive. Okay, okay. Oh, sorry. Um, so in our situations, we went through a very long period of not only not getting help, but not knowing what to do specifically for our child or for ourselves. When my son got sick, I just thought he'd get better again. Nobody told me, yes, I know he was walking yesterday, he's never going to walk again. That took 3 to 4 years when they quote tried and didn't try and what they did for him. And the same thing that what went on with your child, in your birth and what went on. There's no diagnosis of cerebral palsy the second you're born, even though the oxygen deprivation happened, even though the NICU happened, even though all of that. And you see this on social media all the time where people are like this wait and see, like, well, the doctor said I might be at risk for CP, but we're not sure yet. And they're just hopeful. I understand hopeful, but they don't understand that hopeful is not being proactive.
I understand what you're saying. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
When people hear reflex, they usually think of the doctor tapping your knee and your leg jumping. But that's just one tiny example, right? What
Oh,
is a
yes,
reflex really?
exactly. So a reflex, in simple terms, is a response to stimuli. So if I hear a noise and I turn, that's a reflex. And so a lot of people get confused and feel that that's also a startle. And the startle part is what makes you react. But actually, our first reflex is gravity. We have to breathe against gravity. We've never done gravity until the second we're born. We have gravity till as a stimuli till the day from the day we're born to the day we die. Now, in your case with CP, gravity is counter oppositional, right? So all your moves are counter opposing. And that's one of the actually the earliest signs that you can tell it's going to be cerebral palsy. So instead of, let's say, me putting my hand down naturally, you naturally want to put your hands up, right? And so it's counter oppositional. And so it's to me, it's a very easy tell if a child's going into that. But we'll start looking at reflexes first because a lot of people don't know how to evaluate a baby. So they see this counter oppositional and they go, oh, it's a Moro. No, that's not a Moro. Now, Moro should happen almost like a little baby jumping jack. It's the first time your movement is going against the pelvis in all directions from your feet, your fingers to your toes, right? But if you're just here, right, that means you haven't mastered your gravitational reflex, really, of lying down or what I call the absolute horizon. Excuse me.
What is a moro?
So a moral reflex, in true words, is your body is combining gravity. So I'm pushing against gravity. You and I don't feel it as much anymore. You do because you have more of a force with your movements. But if I'm reaching for a cup, I'm not saying, oh, I've got to push through gravity to get that cup. Whereas that's what your baby is doing or a newborn. And so we have certain reflexes to allow the body to coordinate. And that coordination a Moro is a very significant one. It looks like, again, a little, I look at it as a little baby jumping jack, but you'll see the hands and the feet go away from each other. But what this does is the pelvis is the only place in your body that moves movement in all directions. You don't have that in your wrist, you don't have that in your elbow. And so it kicks in the pelvis moving. Moro will show up in a cartwheel. Moro will show up in monkey bars. But again, if Moro doesn't happen, as you know from the movements that you're trying to work on, it can be very difficult to conduct movements as you're growing up because you didn't respond and kick in those areas of movement.
So is coordination only from reflex?
Right. Early coordination and synchronization, reflexes is the easiest way for the body to do it. Remember, when you're going through development, the body wants easy. So a lot of people, when they hear a noise, they'll do this, and people think that that's a Moro. Yes, it can be, but you have to look at Moro as getting that pelvis to move. And I think this is so why I'm doing this is I think people get confused because they see a Moro and they're not treating the child for CP. They're going after specifically of the reflex. And the reflexes are part of your development, not the only thing that causes it. Mm.
So these reflexes are like the body's built-in movement software, giving structure to how we grow and move.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like our bones are our structure, so are reflexes. And now, if you want to see the proof to the pudding, there's no reflexes in outer space. And this is why I started saying, well, gravity's involved in the reflexes because they spend a lot of money trying to understand why tapping that knee doesn't do anything for an astronaut, but it does something for somebody down here on Earth. We need to feel that gravity as part of the combination to get a reflex going. So when a baby or you or even myself has had traumatizing effects with gravity, then we got to work with the gravitational reflexes before we work with the primitive reflexes. So it's just a different stage to it.
Interesting point.
Well, I always try and show where movement is and where it comes from. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't have to worry about, let's say, tummy time because my child's 13 years old. But these are our foundations, our little, just like DNA, it's our foundations. So development and reflexes and forces of movement, midline vision, they all connect to help the body's overall movement. And it's hard to evaluate when you're missing some big pieces. And this is what I'm trying to do is make that process easier.
Building blocks.
Yeah, building blocks, but they're interlaced.
So we're not talking about problems, but about unfinished movement conversations in the body.
Right. Talking about problems, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't usually get you a solution. All right. We need to know what is the stress. So, like, even if someone says my shoulder hurts, right, I might go after the ankle because I'm like, oh, you really sprained your ankle. So now your shoulder's doing the work it shouldn't be doing.
Mhm.
That's one of the things to look at. Is a reflex doing a job it shouldn't be doing? Right? And we need to get the reflex back onto what it's supposed to be doing. Again, this is where you might see a Moro, that's the most common one, and it all of a sudden it goes into ataxia, dystonia, and people think it's the same conversation. And that's not what's going on per se. A child might be having seizures. This is why, again, getting to know your child and what the movement is and the structure for good, but also too, let's say your child has been very traumatized, like you were, my son was. A lot of people think they're going from a 4 to a 1 tomorrow. Maybe you, in your case, you have to go from a 4 to 3 or 3.5 into and start to see those progressive movements.
And it can take years.
Oh, it can take years if you're working on the wrong thing. If you're like again, if a child has a startle, people will start with swaddling. My argument is, well, let's find out why your child's startling versus swaddling. Oh, the swaddling, you can't startle. Just because you can't startle doesn't mean your body doesn't want to startle. So it's lots of times when you swaddle, you're here, and then when you don't swaddle, now you really have a startle because they haven't learned, right? The movement is the learning, and the learning is then the cognition. So the movement needs to be there. So looking at reflexes too is a functional movement versus a startle or survival, I think is more helpful to parents and what they need to work on.
Let's talk about the phrase from your book functional, not positional. What does it mean? So,
So, okay, so functional was always a big part of my life. When my son got sick, first he'd fall. And the falls, I used to tell the doctors he's falling like a trunk. He would fall this way and this way. And they just look at me and go, Lady, falling's falling. I'm like, no, it's not. A baby should fall squat. Now, Kay knows this too. If Kay were to suddenly startle and fall, she's going to go off to the side and all of those things. So those aren't even a fall needs to be functional, but functional in simplicity terms means I can stick out my arm, let's say. I can do this all day long. I can't get dressed. I can't feed myself. It might be something that I can do. It's positional, but that doesn't mean it's going to help me. And when your baby or you, it doesn't matter what age, is doing a movement that's not functional, the brain is not A, learning from it, but it's also getting into trouble. And again, we see this with the astronauts. We say it's muscle atrophy, but the muscle atrophy is coming because they don't have functional movement. Their exercises in space are very positional based, and their bodies are just,
anesthesia is different than a reflex.
oh, absolutely. And so that's what you have to look at with your child is again, if it's positional, again, so like if someone is just like this, it's really not a moral. A moral is where you're going from this all the way out to here and coming back again. You're going to see the movements the same going out as the movements are coming in, right? That's very, very important to the human body. And so that's what you want to look at with your child. Again, is it a functional morale or is it positionally into a startle, stiffness, or those kind of things? And that's why I break it down into a one, two, three, four, so you can see where that's either it's maybe not engaging in time. There's lots of things that can go into it.
So instead of asking, can the child hold this posture? We should be asking, can the child move through this pattern?
Right. So the biggest thing that you're looking for in anybody, and again, we talk about children, but the same conversations goes for adults. You need to be in and out of the position. So really, in clear terms, if a person can't get in and out of standing, they're not walking, right? So it's about going through. So reflexes are a beautiful way of looking at these nice little transition skills and how they're happening to your child to transition, and those transitions are your development. That's just so key. And the biggest problem where you think you end up in therapy is because your child's not achieving a milestone. Now, when you're saying achieving a milestone, you've got to be careful. A lot of people want to put your child into a position um, and hold it, let's say. But like I said, Amoro, I'm here, my arms are long, and it's almost like a big stretch. I go out in all directions and I come back in. So there's a transition that happens, and that's really important to look for.
Even during a dressage test, take a lot.
Yeah. It just it's for some things that are more complex, and dressage is a beautiful horseback riding technique. And yes, you have to part of it is your just your stance, your posture. It's your horse's posture. Your horse gets graded just as much as you do. Yeah. And that's where people start looking for the good horse. They don't look at the rider, they look more at the horse. And it's but a horse too is very wonderful to you, but they know when they don't have a good rider.
Mm. It takes the pressure off getting rid of a reflex and focuses on supporting how it evolves through movement.
Oh, absolutely. Because if your child, let's say, and you can do this, get up and do a jumping jack, let's say, if you can, or get in and out of standing, and now do it, let's say, in crossing your eyes. So if you don't have binocular vision, so that's where people go, well, my child's pronating their feet, they're not going into the reflexes. And I'm like, yeah, but they don't have good vision. That's a hard conversation for parents to put the two together. And I'm like, well, cross your eyes now and go to stand up. Do you feel that your feet are pronating? This is why your child's pronating. The vision's off. We need to make the vision stronger, as an example. This is where like therapies that you started out as like riding therapy, and now you're riding for competition. Same thing. What that horseback riding has done to help your movements has been amazing. And to work on reflexes. I don't want you startling when you're on top of a horse.
What is pronating?
Oh, sorry. Pronating is when collapses inwards. So lots of times people complain to me because their child has flat feet, duck feet, but their feet go in. But again, if I cross my eyes and I try and stand up, you will feel more so the inside of my arches.
I don't do dressage to compete, but level what I need to work on.
Oh, the biggest thing that you have to work on for horseback riding, um, is, and you see this in karate, you see it in tennis, is the head position. So when the horse moves, the head stays stable, the horse goes up. I mean, the head has to stay stable if the horse, let's say, is jumping. So if you're seeing the head doing this is where you bring attention to the judges real quick. And it doesn't matter if you're in karate, if you're karate, your head stays in position when you're moving your forms around. Same thing with tennis. You don't want to duck your head and then hit. You want to keep that posture to go around. And you will see it in most things that the posture in form is really looked at. And when a child's two, it's just easier to catch the first month of life when the reflexes are not establishing the way that they are. It's not going to get better with age. It needs to be addressed right away. And again, not as an alarm, but as a proactive approach.
I can see how that changes practice for therapists and teachers. It's not about positioning or testing, it's about observing the flow of motion and function.
Oh, absolutely. It's very easy to evaluate somebody. Like I might look at you and say, your C7's out. Okay, what are you going to do about it? The empowerment that we're here as Rock the World. And again, you don't have to do the movement lesson reflexes. You can do all sorts. There's plenty of different programs out there. We're here to close that gap on what are you going to do about it? And that's what we're here for. That's what we talk about medical complexities. We talk about schoolings. We talked about IEP. We have some wonderful podcasts, guys, but that's what we're here for is again that proactive. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. Cade is in the same position. We're here to advocate for you. We're not here to talk about us.
Let's make this practical. For everyone listening, parents, teachers, therapists, how can they start observing reflexes functionally in everyday life?
The biggest thing that you're looking for is again that quality of movement. Sort of what I'm picking on Moro today, but it doesn't matter if you're ATNR. If you're ATNR, what the ATNR is I'm pushing against gravity with my hand and my elbow. And when I change it to that, right, like a bow and arrow, it's actually the first time my shoulder blades will articulate from the chest cavity. Now again, big sign for CP, the chest, the shoulders aren't separated from the chest cavity. They sort of like your shoulders are glued to the chest cavity. There's a difference. And again, that ATNR didn't happen. But the other thing that happens when you do that is that's the first time my upper body is crossing midline. But there should be a nice quality and quality. You should see that amount of pressure going out as well as going in and transferring over. And that is really spot on. That can be seen in the first months of life. But those qualities of movement, that movement here, well, this is me putting something up on the cupboard. This is me getting out of the car. This is getting me out of the booth. So you can say that the reflexes integrate, but at the same time, too, it's those qualities of movements. But if you're not seeing a child with good transitioning skills, we can call it cerebral palsy, we can call it autism or ADD, right? They don't transition well. This is where we can catch it earlier with the reflexes and we can catch it more appropriately.
What is a TNR?
Oh, ATNR, so atonic neck reflex, but they're looking, they call it the fencer pose. So people think that I have this, I'm doing it. Oh wow, they're doing it. This is really where severe CP gets stuck. And some kiddos, I've seen them literally do this just for eye positioning, and they're going around and they're either pulling their elbow back because kids are so intelligent. They'll do stuff just to get the job done, right? And if they want to move their eyes over here, they're actually doing this, like they're pulling their eyes over here, and you'll see this back arching. This is really severe CP, right? But a lot of people go, "Yay, my kid's got an ATNR." The fencer pose, everything's going well. The quality of movement, that's your secret sauce. That's what you need to look for.
So it's really about watching how the body moves, not just what it's doing.
Right. And you see that again with your horseback show this weekend. It's about how the rider and the horse move together, not just what they're doing. Anybody can jump over a lock, you know what I mean? But it's that quality that you're looking for. If someone's jumping and they're like, ah, which again is that overactive reflex, they're not going to get graded well. We're not here to grade the kids, but to look at that thing. But reflexes are what starts those midlines in the body. So, STNR, where I'm bringing my head up. Now my head is going over, and reflex, which is really airplane and tummy time. They're all coordinating with your developmental milestones, and that is all charted out in many different levels to make it easier. And I'm putting it also into my artificial intelligence for those who say, "Oh, Michelle, you say it's easy, but you're making me check about 50,000 things." And so it can be done again with ease.
It takes the pressure off doing reflex exercises and instead encourages curiosity, following the child's movement story.
You really have to remember a child should just be going through the motions and everything happens. Really, you should be able to read your book and your child should just develop. When you start saying, I need to help my child, or I'm concerned that my child can't do it right, those concerns really should be just proactive right away. And again, it's not about doing exercises. This is just helping your child move. And the same thing too with an aging adult. You will see in this category the decline happen for adults really quickly. And that they can't jump anymore, something as simple as that. And people go, why do I need to jump for? It's not that I want you to jump every day, it's you should be able to, as an example.
Curiosity over correction. It's like we're partnering with the body instead of fighting it.
Yeah, I was actually showing a 17-year-old once what I did, and I showed her because I do a free Facebook Live evaluations on our group, Movement Lesson for Parents and Practitioners. I again feel people don't have the money or they don't know it's an investment yet, and they need to know what's going on, and I want to be there for her. So I was showing her like a baby that I had to review or a child, and she goes, it's like they're fighting an imaginary playmate, like there's an imaginary playmate laying on top of them and they're just doing this. And I said, well, that's such a good description of a child just struggling with movement. And so again, some babies and all of us, we just need help sometime. And it's about getting the help. But really, if these things go awry, and they're left to that, trying to backtrack when they're 2 or 3 and older, that's a struggle. It's a lot of work.
Michelle, this conversation completely reframes how we think about reflexes. They're not things to get rid of, they're movement stories waiting to evolve.
Oh no, we never get rid of reflexes. And me just even washing my hair on the sink or brushing my teeth, do you know what I mean? And I come back out. That's my STNR. These things are with us. They have a conversation. We have a really strong baseline, like rolling over. And you might say, I'm never going to roll over again. And I'm like, well, how do you get out of bed? We do actually use developmental milestones a lot more than you think. I get it that I'm not on the floor watching TV because I'm a grown adult, but these skills stay with us as our foundation, and that's what it's about. Where is there, where does your child maybe need help? But to only work on one part of the body, like to work on reflexes when a child's vision is very complex, let's say as an example, you want to work with the vision first. And so a lot of people work with the reflexes and then they don't realize that their child just needs vision help first. And so they're like again, they're using the reflexes to move their eyes around instead of just being able to go, hi, and do that with their eyes. There's a difference.
How do you determine the difference?
Well, that's where I brought in the deviation. So first of all, you want to look at someone's birth. So from you have a full term birth, no surgery involved, all the way up to prematurity and NICU time. To do a blanket statement, if someone's born prematurely, and the biggest thing that's going to interfere with reflexes in that stage is there's too much skin. So the skin of a fetus or in utero is fully grown by 30 weeks. And that's when a child starts putting on weight. So if you see a premature baby, they look wrinkly, right? Well, guess what? If I go to do a moro and my skin to mass ratio is not correct, how am I going to stretch out? And so that's where they get stuck and they almost go into a spasm because they're not feeling the skin tonus. When I reach for a cup, it should feel like I'm putting a shirt on. Again, getting dressed and feeling that compression, that's a reflex. This is a big problem with children with special needs. They can't dress themselves. They don't know how
Mhm.
to, you know what I mean? That movement is not there. This is reflexes going the long way. And so that's where you start looking at, and again, on month to month where it looks at, and I'm doing that for cerebral palsy right now. I did a big poster on the one through every month of where you're looking at for the possibilities to severities of having cerebral palsy.
What is our next podcast episode, Michelle?
Well, I would really like to cover what are the possible signs and symptoms to cerebral palsy. I really did a big poster, again, explaining the births like I just did. And people think, well, I didn't have the birth trauma, so what do I have to worry about? I don't have cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
Oxygen deprivation happens. It could have happened in birth. There could have been a stroke in utero. There could be lots of different things. There could be genetics involved. Fox gene ones is a cerebral palsy. But I broke it down what to look for the first month, second month, third month, because it's a shame to me that I see too many parents out on social media going, does this look like CP to you? When they're not getting the guidance from professionals. But in the US, we don't talk about development until 9 months. So yeah, unfortunately, if you go to a lot of pediatricians and you start concerning, let's say, rolling over, or they'll say, "Oh, but you're premature, so give your child a little bit." No, that's a child that needs help. Help and waiting are two different things. We're here to help it.
Yeah.
We're not here to wait.
No.
You can wait for your dinner, but not for help for your child.
Thanks for joining us on Rock the World with Kay and Michelle. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who loves movement, and leave a review.
And ask questions. If you want us to cover something, let us know and we can cover it. I'm Michelle from Movement Lesson at Movement Lesson Academy. This is Kay. Kay has amazing podcasts, not just with me. She rocks the world in so many different ways. And you can catch her neurodivergent with Kay. And please, if you have any questions, download the podcast and ask away.
Michelle has other podcasts too.
Yes, I do. And I need to do more of them. And like I said, we did have to take a break, so we'll be here sooner next time. And thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Bye.